Yeah, sure. I've got some direct questions. Thank you. Minister.
And if there's one about the Garda Síochána, it won't be taken. But anyway, go ahead.
I hadn't intended to take anything about the Garda Síochána,
okay.
So you're okay. Minister, on the 24th of August, you gave an interview to, maybe it was the 25th, it was reported on the 24th in the Irish Times. Sorry, it might have been the 23rd. You gave an interview to 96 FM in Cork. You said it doesn't matter whether you're a commissioner, a president, a Taoiseach, a minister or anybody else, for that matter, the same rules should apply to everybody in Ireland. You went on to say the idea that certain politicians see themselves as different or that the rules do not apply, etc., etc., and I won't continue reading it, but clearly by August you saw any breach of COVID as a most serious breach and that nobody was above the law. Would you agree with that?
Want me to answer all those questions?
Thank you. Yeah.
Just in relation to the Senator's question, I assume that was in response to the Golfgate issues when I was trying to explain that no one's above the law, and no one is above the law. That was the context in which I made those comments. I think this report says very clearly that there was no breach of the law or regulations. There's certainly no evidence to suggest that. What there was a breach of social distancing guidelines, which was not acceptable, should not have happened, and has been acknowledged and apologised for. In relation to Deputy Ardaz's question, no, I didn't take a drink on the night. When I came back to the department, I called through this is a big open plan area that when you come in the back of the department and you walk through, that's where the UN team were. I called in, and some people were packing up to go home. It was quite late at that stage. I'd say it was in and around 10:15. Some people had gone home, and other people were at their desks tidying up. Some people were on the phone, some people were on computers. I mean, it was a workspace. That's what I saw when I came in. So I think they're the two questions that I was asked. I leave the €2,000 issue to the Secretary General.
Okay, Minister, in relation to the United Nations Security Council, your statement starts off about 15 years' work with a 2-year intensive workload. Would you accept we've had the United Nations Security Council every 20 years since 1960? The mathematics suggest we would have had it anyway, if not this year, next.
Deputy, with respect, I don't think that's a fair reflection on what was achieved. We were competing for 2 places in a group of 3 countries. The other 2 countries that we were competing with were Norway and Canada, 2 of the most popular countries in the UN. And certainly Ireland getting through in the first round, but getting through in the first round was not expected by most people. Yes, it is true that we've been on the Security Council before. Every 20 years, as it happens. We have successfully managed to get on the Security Council, but this was certainly seen as one of the most difficult votes to come through on that Ireland has ever faced in a UN vote. I don't think that would be an exaggeration to say that. We had been successful, I think, against Italy previously, which was a difficult contest, and we've been elected uncontested as well at different times. But this was certainly seen as a significant task to be in the top 2 in that group of 3, and that is why people were so up for it in the department. That's why they were there expecting to work through the night.
Okay, thank you.
That's why we're there, and that is also why, even though it's not a justification, of course, it's also why people celebrated, I think, in the way that they did, because they were both relieved and extremely happy about what had happened, and unfortunately let their guard down in that space.
Thank you, Minister. Secretary General, your report, which is a comprehensive report, you make the point in today's statement for staff working in Ivy House on the 17th of June, many of whom had come to the office prepared to work through the night while conducting essential business. One of your staff, and by the way, I believe it was unfair to ask you to compile a report, having just taken over the department, to investigate your own staff. But one of the staff had a child with them. Is it normal for staff to bring a child with them for essential work?
Yeah, so there were two people on there that evening who were on maternity leave. One of them, they were both essential members of the UN policy team, and they were both essential to our ultimate success. One of them had just gone on maternity leave, and in fact had the baby 3 days afterwards. And one of them had had a baby recently and was nursing the baby. That's why the baby was there. As I said, both of them were essential members of that team. They came in of their own decision. They weren't asked to come in. But I want to stress that it's a really important part of our maternity policy in the department that women on maternity leave can remain connected with the workplace. And that in turn is an essential part of our gender equality strategy. And so, as we acknowledge in the report, I can't sit here and say that their presence there that evening was for an essential purpose. I acknowledge that. But equally, I wasn't prepared to make a negative finding about them. I think it would have been detrimental to what we're trying to do in gender equality in the department. And it would have been a disservice to two outstanding people who were vital to our success.
Yeah, I think it's most unfortunate that there was a child there on the night. But anyway, are you familiar with this document, General Secretary?
I can't see that.
But in fairness, Senator Craughwell, now you...
Sorry, it's the Civil Service Disciplinary Code.
Yes, Senator, I am.
You are? Okay. So the first paragraph on the disciplinary code, the purpose of the code is to set out arrangements for dealing with disciplinary matters in the civil service. It is also to ensure that civil servants are aware that if there is any failure to adhere to the required standards or conduct, work performance or attendance, the disciplinary procedure of this circular will apply. Clearly, the breach that took place was detrimental to the Civil Service Code. It brought the department into disrepute. It brought several members of the department into disrepute. And yet you did not invoke the disciplinary procedure. Why?
No, that's a fair question. And Senator, I thought quite a lot about that during the process. Decided not to go down that route for a variety of reasons. I think had we done so, it would have been necessarily entirely confidential. We wouldn't have been able to disclose the outcome of that. We wouldn't have been able to respond to the public concern that had been created. We wouldn't have been able to, on the legal advice, to publish the report we published because it could have been prejudicial. And I just made a judgment call that, given the level of attention this had got, there was a need to address that public concern quickly and in an open way, and I felt that going down the route of the disciplinary code wouldn't have achieved that. But that was my call.
Would you accept that junior members of staff who will at some stage or who have in the past been subjected to the disciplinary procedures would feel that there is one law for them and another for senior members of staff?
I'd hope not. I don't know what they'd feel. I hope not. I think that they would probably see the most senior member of the department, the Secretary General, held to a high standard here. I can explain in response to Deputy Ardad the Senator Ardad the question around the donation, and I think they would have seen the level of public scrutiny on the then Secretary General over the last 6 weeks and would have considered that he paid a considerable cost for his error of judgment and mistake.
Thank you, Secretary General. Minister, back to you for a moment. The Secretary General himself was promoted. Who recommended his promotion or his move to an ambassador's role?
It's not an issue for this committee.
I think it is.
No, it isn't. It isn't. And it's an issue, the answer to which you were told before at this committee.
On a different issue. Yeah, but I do think it's important because we're talking about...
It might be important, but it's not one for this committee,
well,
and it's not one for answer to...
Chairman, I'll take your ruling on that. Minister, I withdraw the question on the basis of the Chairman. Chairman, I have one final thing I need to address, and that is that news broke today regarding another incident which the Minister... I appreciate what you're going to say. Either. You're not going to allow it for discussion today, but by not allowing it for discussion today, you force me and other members of the committee to now request the Minister to return to deal with that issue. And I would much rather that we cleared it out of the way today because it is a serious, serious matter. But look,
we're not
I'm going to take your ruling on it.
We're not going to deal with it now because
I'm sorry, Minister,
you have been to the fore in requesting that this committee examine the circumstances surrounding the events of the evening of the 17th of June. And now as indeed Deputy Brady has tried earlier, you wish to shift the ground.
No,
in order
It's
not an accurate comment. I did not try shift any ground.
In order to question the minister.
Chairman, I won't question your authority here at all, and I just want to make this point, that this is a matter now that is hanging over us from another department.
And it's being dealt with.
And it will have to be dealt with
Yes.
in this committee, and I think that's unfortunate for the Minister, because I know he would want to deal with it today.
Chair, to be helpful in that, can I just say I'll be more than happy to come back and deal with that issue, but there are many issues that I hope I'll be able to deal with this committee on in the context of reform of the Defence Forces and the defence sector as a whole. Tomorrow we'll publish probably the most significant document relating to defence that's been published for 50 years, in my view, in terms of reform and change in the Defence Forces structure, culture, legislative underpinning, a whole range of things.
I appreciate that.
As well as, of course, I'll be happy to deal with any individual incidents that are subject to review. But can I just caution the Senator that there are also judicial proceedings underway.
That's my whole point, Minister.
In relation to an issue and a potential court-martial, and I think people need to be careful in that regard.
We may be in the risk of double jeopardy because of what you have done in the last few days.
That is not true, Deputy. That is not true, Senator, and we've been careful to ensure that's not the case.
Chairman, I asked questions have been